Imagine stepping into a room where every glance is a loaded question. Where the mere sight of you sparks whispers sharp enough to cut. This was exactly what Alina Reyes felt the moment she entered the grand lecture hall of Eastborough University. The atmosphere was thick with intellectual elitism, the kind that dressed in designer blazers and wrapped itself in legacies. Alina, 17, from the Ninth Ward of New Orleans, stood at the threshold of the National Youth Debate Invitational, nervous, underdressed, and uninvited in every unspoken way. Her sneakers were worn, her navy blazer a size too big and clearly secondhand, and her slow southern cadence was the kind that drew sneers, not applause. But what she carried, tight to her chest, wasn't just a notebook, it was a symbol of years of grit. Handwritten speeches, late-night strategy sessions with her mother, and a quiet fire built from a life of being underestimated. Did someone leave the door open for local volunteers? A smug voice echoed across the room. It belonged to Preston Huxley IV, the crowned prince of Eastborough's debate team, as polished and entitled as the ivy-covered brick that surrounded them. Laughter erupted from his circle of admirers as he eyed Alina with mockery. She froze, but only for a breath. Then came a sharper voice from the front. "That's enough. Mr. Huxley." Professor Danica Grayson, the famously unflinching director of the Invitational, shut down the insult with barely a flicker of emotion. The room went quiet, but the damage lingered in the form of Alina's burning cheeks. Still, she didn't run. She didn't flinch. She found a spot by the window and opened her debate journal. The pages soft from years of turning, annotated in pencil and coffee stains, while the others exchanged resumes like war medals and aligned themselves into polished practice groups. Alina remained alone, tracing the edges of her notebook. Her mother's words, whispered in countless moments of doubt, surfaced again. "You don't have to outdress them, baby. Just outthink them." That afternoon, Professor Grayson announced the topic for the next day's elimination round. Resolved: the role of socioeconomic background in university admissions should be minimized. Alina's heart beat faster. The irony was almost cruel. This wasn't just a debate topic, it was her lived reality. As the room filled with students forming study pods and poring over databases, no one extended her an invitation. So she found an empty corner in the university library, powered up her battered laptop, and dove deep. Supreme Court rulings, socioeconomic impact studies, historical Yale admission statistics. She read until her eyes ached. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. "You got this, baby girl. Make them hear you." Alina smiled faintly, inhaled deeply, and got back to work. What the others didn't know was that Alina Reyes had grown up debating her way through broken systems and narrow minds. She wasn't here by mistake. Despite what they assumed, she had been tested before, not in ivy-covered classrooms, but in real life, where every opportunity had to be clawed from doubt. And while everyone else sharpened their delivery, Alina sharpened her purpose. She wasn't just preparing for a tournament. She was preparing to prove that brilliance isn't born in privilege. It thrives in spite of it, and tomorrow they would hear her, whether they were ready or not. The sun barely peeked through the stained glass windows of Eastborough University's debate hall, casting long, cold shadows across the rows of polished wood benches. On the morning of the first elimination round, Alina Reyes stood just outside the chamber doors, clutching her notebook like armor. Her name was listed dead last on the speaker schedule, an afterthought. A footnote in a room filled with legacy kids and ivy-bound prodigies. Across the aisle, Preston Huxley IV was first to take the stage. With his tailored suit, flawless articulation, and theatrical pauses, he delivered a dazzling performance, weaving personal anecdotes with cherry-picked statistics to make the audience nod and judges smile. The applause was confident, as if they just witnessed the inevitable winner. Speaker after speaker took the floor, each with a voice smooth from years on the national circuit. They used polished transitions, rhetorical flourishes, and well-rehearsed charm. Alina listened to every word, not with intimidation, but with intent. She noted logical gaps, over-reliance on anecdote, shaky definitions. Still, a knot tightened in her stomach as her name was finally called. A beat of silence followed. Next speaker, Alina Reyes, representing the Southeast Regional Public Forum. She rose slowly. Her steps toward the podium felt like trudging through cement. Her throat dry, her palms damp. The whispers started again. Who is she? Is she really from Louisiana? Public school kid, I think. Weird pick. Professor Grayson's eyes remained locked on her from the judge's table. Cool. Unreadable. Alina placed her notebook on the stand and adjusted the microphone. The tremble in her fingers nearly imperceptible. Then she spoke. Her opening line was quiet, but razor sharp. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Eastboro for this invitation, even if some people in this room believe I shouldn't be here. The reaction was immediate, gasps, awkward chuckles, shifting postures. But Alina didn't blink. She moved directly into her argument with measured clarity. She didn't have the polished delivery of her competitors, but what she had was undeniable, lived truth. She spoke of broken public schools, of debate programs held in borrowed classrooms, of communities where ambition often dies in the shadow of inequality. She referenced landmark court rulings, dissected socioeconomic admissions data, and then, without warning, shifted tone. Some of us weren't born with acceptance letters waiting in the mailbox, she said, locking eyes with Preston mid-sentence. Some of us had to earn every invitation, including this one. The room was silent. Not the silence of boredom, but the kind that demanded attention. She concluded with a final punch. Minimizing the role of socioeconomic background isn't about giving anyone a handout. It's about recognizing potential. About making sure the next Alina Reyes doesn't have to stand here proving she deserves a seat she's already earned. Her voice didn't waver, not once as she stepped down from the podium. There was a moment's pause, then applause. Not roaring, not unanimous, but real. Preston leaned in as she walked past, muttering, "Cute speech. Let's see if it even matters." Alina didn't respond. She didn't need to later that afternoon. The preliminary rankings were posted outside the hall. Alina approached cautiously, her heart racing. Only the top 16 advanced. Her eyes darted across the list. Preston Huxley, ranked first as expected, and then, there it was. Alina Reyes, ranked 12. She exhaled sharply. Relief flooded through her. She had made it, barely, but she was still in the game behind her. Preston's voice rang out again, full of sarcasm. Well, would you look at that? Miracles do happen. And just like before, Alina walked past him, chin up, eyes ahead, because she knew something had shifted, and the real battle was only just beginning. The email arrived late at night, just as Alina Reyes was piecing together her notes for the quarterfinals. Subject line: revised topic assignment, urgent. It looked official, with the Eastboro Debate Committee's insignia and formal language. The body read, due to scheduling conflicts, your topic has been changed. Please prepare the following resolution. The American education system rewards conformity over creativity. Failure to comply will result in disqualification. Alina blinked. Nothing in the original schedule mentioned a change. No one else had said anything about new topics. Still, with barely 10 hours before the round, she couldn't afford to question it. She shoved aside her carefully prepared research on affirmative action and started over. By 2 a.m., her speech was written. Her eyes bloodshot, her energy nearly gone. She fell asleep with her laptop still humming on her bed. The next morning, the debate hall buzzed with anticipation. Students filed in, caffeinated and confident. Alina, exhausted but determined, clutched her speech notes as she approached the check-in table. That's when Professor Grayson called out sharply, "Miss Reyes, where have you been?" Confused, Alina responded, preparing for the topic change. The email said. She pulled out her phone, showing the message. Grayson scanned the screen, her expression darkening. "This didn't come from us," she said flatly. "It's a spoofed email. Fake." The words hit Alina like a blow to the chest. Her hands trembled. But, she stammered. Grayson cut her off. Your round begins in 5 minutes. The topic is resolved. Technology has eroded authentic human communication. Not the one you spent the night preparing for. Alina's world tilted. Panic surged. She had no outline, no prep, no data, nothing. Across the room, she saw Preston Huxley watching her with a smug grin. He mouthed 2 words across the crowd. Oops. Her heart thundered. She had 2 choices, walk out, or walk up. Her mother's voice rose again in her memory. You didn't come this far to fold now. Baby Alina grabbed a blank notepad and darted to a corner. She began scribbling ideas at lightning speed. Technology, communication, erosion, screens over sincerity. Her pen moved faster than her fear. When her name was called, she walked to the podium, spine straight but fingers cold. Her voice, at first, was hesitant, then steady, then sharp. She spoke from experience. How social media distorted friendships. How FaceTime couldn't replace real tears. How her classmates in New Orleans spoke in emojis but not empathy. Her delivery lacked stats, but it didn't lack soul. And in the end, the words hit home as she stepped off stage. She caught Preston's expression, less amused now, more calculating. Professor Grayson didn't applaud, but she watched Alina more intently than ever before. That evening, alone in her room, Alina scrolled through her inbox. No new threats, no new tricks, but she knew this wasn't over. Someone had tried to break her spirit. Instead, she had shown she could adapt, pivot, and still rise. Her phone buzzed. A notification. Quarterfinal results posted. Alina raced to the bulletin board. Her breath caught as her name appeared. Rank 5. She was moving on to the semifinals around her. Heads turned. Whispers followed. Even Preston, standing off to the side, frowned when he saw her name. But Alina didn't care. She'd survived sabotage. She'd stared down manufactured failure and improvised her way through it. And if they wanted to play dirty, she was now ready to play smarter. Because from this point forward, no one would write her story but her. The semifinal topic landed like a bolt of lightning into Alina Reyes's inbox. Resolved. Social movements driven by digital activism are less effective than traditional grassroots organizing. For the first time in days, she actually smiled. This wasn't just a topic. This was her reality. As the rest of the competitors scrambled to gather sources, Alina already knew where to look. She pulled up case studies on Black Lives Matter, the Arab Spring, and disaster relief efforts following Hurricane Katrina. Her fingers moved quickly, not from panic, but from a place of purpose. This was her territory. Digital movements weren't theories to her, they were lifelines. As her dorm mates whispered about their prep strategies, Alina sat quietly in the corner of the lounge, headphones in, writing from experience. When the day of the semifinal arrived, the energy in Eastborough's Grand Debate Hall felt different, thicker, more electric. Her opponent was Priya Narayan, ranked 2nd overall and a prodigy from a New Jersey prep school with a resume longer than a college application. Priya was everything the institution loved, polished, poised, and programmed for perfection. As they took the stage, Priya offered a polite smile, tight, practiced, and cold. The moderator introduced them, and Priya launched her opening with the fluidity of someone who had memorized every syllable. Her argument was strategic. Traditional movements had a deeper reach, more tactile connections, better sustainability. Her tone was measured, her cadence flawless. The judges nodded along. The room was comfortably impressed. Then came Alina. She stepped forward slowly, her notes clutched loosely in one hand. There was no rehearsed smile, no theatrics, just a breath, and then truth. Digital activism, she began, isn't a replacement. It's a megaphone for the unheard. From there, her voice didn't rise in pitch, it rose in weight. She spoke about how social media petitions helped her local library avoid closure, how online fundraisers helped rebuild parts of her neighborhood after Katrina, how viral hashtags kept a classmate's wrongful suspension from being swept under the rug. When no one listens at City Hall, she said, Sometimes a tweet is the only voice you have. Her words didn't just inform, they revealed. She didn't argue from theory, but from lived experience, every line etched in memory, not textbooks. And when she mentioned the loss of her uncle during the chaotic weeks after Katrina, how digital platforms became the only way to raise emergency aid for her family, the entire room shifted. The crowd, once stoic, now sat breathless. Even Priya blinked, her polished posture softening just slightly when the round ended. The judges huddled, murmurs rippled, then the announcement. The winner advancing to the final round, Alina Reyes. The applause came in waves, hesitant at first, then undeniable. Some students clapped, a few stood, most were just stunned. From the bottom of the rankings, the girl with the thrifted blazer was heading to the final. Professor Grayson approached afterward, her expression unreadable. She leaned in and whispered, "Be ready. The next round won't just test your skill." Behind her, leaning against the wall with arms crossed and jaw tight, stood Preston Huxley. Their eyes met, and in that second, both understood the storm ahead. The final round wasn't just Alina versus Preston. It was tradition versus truth. And this time, the whole university would be watching. The morning of the final round arrived shrouded in gray clouds, as if even the sky understood the weight of what was about to unfold. Sanders Auditorium, the largest venue at Eastborough University, was packed to capacity. Faculty, alumni, students, and a row of local journalists filled every seat. Cameras lined the back wall, recording what had quickly become the tournament's most anticipated showdown, Alina Reyes, the public school wildcard from New Orleans, versus Preston Huxley IV, the polished prince of Eastborough's debate elite. Alina sat backstage, flipping through her notebook with steady hands, her nerves tightly coiled but contained. Across the room, Preston paced with a smug grin, flanked by his usual entourage offering high fives and back pats. She overheard him sneer, "Easy win. I'll bury her under cross-exam." But Alina didn't flinch. Professor Grayson approached quietly and bent down beside her. "You're about to step into a room that wasn't built for you," she said, her voice low but firm. "But make no mistake, you've earned every second of this stage." Alina nodded, a fire igniting in her chest. The final topic appeared on the projection screen. Resolved, traditional institutions remain the best guardians of academic integrity. Alina nearly laughed at the irony. The very institutions that had tried to gatekeep her journey were now the subject of her final battle. The moderator introduced them, and the applause erupted, louder for Preston, as expected, but not silent for her. That alone was a small victory. Preston took the podium first, launching into an expertly rehearsed narrative about elite universities preserving the purity of knowledge. He quoted research studies, lauded academic traditions, and even referenced past education secretaries to paint Eastborough and its peers as selfless guardians of integrity. His delivery was theatrical, persuasive, and confident. Everything the judges expected from a top-seeded finalist. The room responded with polite nods and light clapping. Then Alina stepped forward. Her palms tingled, her breath even. She looked out at the sea of faces, some skeptical, some curious, a few quietly rooting for her. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "we are here to discuss who gets to define academic integrity." She paused, locking eyes with the judges, then with Preston. "And I stand here as living proof that the institutions we're taught to trust are often the first to silence voices like mine." The audience shifted. Her words were deliberate and unshaken. She didn't name names, but she didn't have to. She described the fake email, the sabotage, the silence from those in power. She drew historical parallels, how these same institutions once excluded women, people of color, the poor. Integrity, she said firmly, isn't just about preserving tradition. It's about recognizing when tradition becomes a wall instead of a window. Cross-examination followed, and Preston came at her hard, attacking definitions, questioning her sources, interrupting with forced confidence. But Alina didn't crumble. She stood her ground with cool precision. "You're shifting the focus, Mr. Huxley," she said evenly. "Let's return to the resolution." Her rebuttal dismantled his argument piece by piece. "If our most trusted institutions were flawless, I wouldn't have had to fight sabotage just to reach this podium." When she finished, the silence that followed was different. It was heavy, thoughtful. Then came applause. Not scattered, not reluctant, genuine. Preston's polished mask cracked for the first time. He looked away. Backstage, as they waited for the results, Alina sat quietly, staring at her worn notebook. One thought circled in her mind: win or lose, they heard me. And in that moment, that was enough. But a part of her knew something bigger was about to shift. The seconds after the final debate felt like hours. Alina Reyes sat in a quiet hallway outside Sanders' auditorium, her fingers trembling despite the calm she projected. Her legs bounced restlessly, and her throat was dry. Inside, the judges were deliberating. She could hear muffled voices, the occasional laugh, then silence again. Across from her, Preston Huxley IV stood with his arms crossed, jaw tight, staring at the floor. His confidence had dimmed into something colder, frustration, maybe even fear. For all his pedigree and polish, something about the girl with the second-hand blazer had shaken him. The door finally creaked open, and Professor Grayson emerged. Her expression was unreadable. "The results will be announced in 5 minutes," she said simply. Alina stood, her knees stiff, her heart thundering in her chest. She followed Grayson back into the hall, now buzzing with anticipation. Phones were out. Students whispered predictions. Preston's entourage sat in the front row, smug in their Yale blue sweaters. Alina's section was nearly empty, except for a few friends she'd made during the week, and a lone news crew from New Orleans who had caught wind of the underdog's rise. The moderator stepped onto the stage with a sealed envelope in hand. He took his time, letting the silence build, the moment stretch. Then, after careful deliberation, the judges have reached a decision. The winner of the 2025 Eastboro National Debate Invitational is Alina Reyes. For a heartbeat, the room froze. Alina barely breathed, afraid she'd misheard. But then, applause erupted. Not just the polite clapping she'd heard before, but real, sustained applause. Some stunned, some proud, some rising to their feet. Even some of Preston's classmates looked unsure whether to cheer or stay seated. Preston didn't wait. He grabbed his bag, avoided every eye in the room, and exited through the side door without a word. Professor Grayson walked up to Alina with a rare smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "You didn't just win a debate," she said softly. "You changed the conversation." Cameras flashed as people came forward to shake Alina's hand, ask for quotes, snap pictures. Amid the chaos, her phone buzzed. A message from her mother lit up the screen. "Told you, baby, you never needed their permission to shine." Later that evening, Alina sat outside the now empty auditorium. The air was cool, the stars above distant but bright. Professor Grayson joined her quietly, sitting beside her with a sigh. "I thought you'd want to know," she said. "The administration found the source of that fake email." Alina turned to her, holding her breath. "It was Preston," Grayson said. "The evidence was conclusive. There'll be disciplinary review. His national future? Likely over." Alina looked down at her hands, unsure what to feel. Relief? Sadness? Justice? "I didn't want it to end like that," she whispered. "I know," Grayson said, "but you handled it with more grace than most adults I've met." They sat in silence for a long while, watching the lights of campus flicker. Weeks later, back home in New Orleans, Alina sat on her front porch sipping sweet tea as the sun dipped below the rooftops. Her mom handed her a thick envelope. The Yale logo was stamped on the corner. Inside was an official invitation to attend the Eastboro Yale Summer Pre-Law Program, full scholarship. Tucked inside was a handwritten note from Professor Grayson. "Can't wait to see how far you'll go." Alina smiled, tears quietly gathering in her eyes. Because she had started as a whisper in the back of a lecture hall, and ended as a name everyone would remember. Sometimes the loudest thing you can say is to stand your ground and speak your truth in a room that was never meant for you. Life will try to convince you that you don't belong, that your voice is too small, too different, too poor, too unexpected. But those are the very things that make your voice powerful. Alina didn't win because she played their game. She won because she rewrote the rules, because she refused to shrink to fit the mold. And in doing so, she reminded all of us that your beginning doesn't define your ending. You don't need permission to rise. You just need courage.